All right, welcome everybody who sees us now, hopefully, on both X and YouTube. I'm Geoff Grammer. This is Sean Reider. Along with me, we're the Albuquerque Journal, two of the Albuquerque Journal sports writers, and we're going to be talking some Lobo football. We're going to be doing it every week, probably on Mondays, but definitely every week after every Lobo football game. About 30, 40 minutes after every game, after Sean gets his post-game interviews in, we're going to recap that game. We're going to kind of put a bow on that game a little bit here on the Mondays and then look ahead a little bit. We both were at today's Lobo football Bronco Mendenhall weekly luncheon where he does just that. He talks about the game that was and the game that is coming. And we're going to start off with that. First of all, before we do that, I do want to thank you guys that were watching on Saturday. I want to thank those of you without a whole lot of promotion. We've just kind of been learning as we go and seeing what sticks. And so much appreciation for you guys that did it. We had well over 3,000 views on Saturday's post-game show without a whole lot, like I said, promotion or even telling you guys necessarily that it was coming other than a tweet or two. So thank you for doing that. We had over 1,000 during the actual live and a couple thousand more, actually about 3,000 more people that have watched it since. I don't know what the numbers are in the last few hours, but much appreciation. This will be a regular thing. We will learn as we go. You guys have suggestions. You guys have thoughts, comments, questions, fire away. Let us know what you think of the show in general, but primarily what you think. Let's get the conversation going and the dialogue going about what you think about Lobo football. What just happened was a 35-31 loss on Saturday at home to FCS Montana State. Worth a whole lot of context that this is one of the best FCS schools in the country. They are ranked number 4. They are one of the odds-on. There are about 5 FCS schools that have really good betting odds to win the FCS national title this year. They are one of them, and they were 2 touchdown favorites. So I thought the Lobos did really well. I will discuss with Sean a little bit. Some reaction to that has been that maybe we were a little homerish on our post-game recap. I never know where I'm gonna fall on the Geoff, you're a hater, or Geoff, you're a homer on all this stuff. When it comes to Lobo football, I was impressed with Saturday. Sean, let's start right now with today's Monday presser, which will be a regular thing throughout the season for coaches all around the country, mind you. What did Bronco Mendenhall, what was his message? What was his demeanor? What would you say Bronco's message today was after Saturday's loss to Montana State?
Yeah, I thought his demeanor. You never quite know what a coach is going to be like, even immediately after a loss, and then in the days after. So I was very curious to see what he would be like, and it seemed honestly, pretty positive, pretty even keel, but more optimistic. One of the questions I asked him, and this was, and Geoff, you gave me a little bit of crap for it last week. Bringing up during Bronco's first year at Virginia, his first season there. They also played a really good FCS team. They played Richmond. They lost 37-20. That was the number 4 overall FCS team in the country at that point. And at the time, Bronco said after that he possibly gave his team way too much in too short of time to try and get things turned around. He thought there was a floor. It turned out to be completely false, and they were at a different level than he knew. He misread it. And I asked him today, I said, was there a similar feeling? And he said, no, we're in a way better spot than we were then. We still have to clean up. The consistency of execution is a term that he used in particular with the front 7, and also just making sure that the offense isn't as static as it was, really the second half when they were shut out completely. But you could also, there's a couple drives in the first half where really, if it wasn't for, that naked bootleg play and kind of throwing that offset I formation at them, Montana State having to adjust, where it wasn't always fantastic. Overall, relatively optimistic, but pretty even keeled. And that's kind of what I got out of today.
Let's go back to some of the game, some of Saturday's game at Montana State. For anybody that didn't see the post-game show, I think it is safe to say neither one of us were piling on UNM by any stretch. I don't know that makes us homers for a team that has been as bad as Lobo football has been to be a 2-touchdown underdog and lead for all but 10 seconds against a really good team. I thought they played well overall. The holes are what the holes are, and I say holes, that's quite literal on the defensive front at times, especially there in the second half. But the reality is this looked like an improved team. It looked like a team that does have, frankly, has some promise. I would say it doesn't have a good schedule. I don't know how this team has a win before it comes back to town in a month. But look, this is a team that I do think has some potential under Bronco. And there is a stat I'm going to come up with here in just a second. But I do want to ask you overall, do you think that there was anything that disappointed you with the Lobos production on Saturday? Obviously, the outcome being the exception. Anything that disappointed you or that Lobo fans, an honest, down the middle Lobo fans should be disappointed with from Saturday?
I think Bronco brought this up today too. It's, when you, and this is a question that I kind of asked, it's the term that everybody, from Tim Brando on the broadcast to people on Twitter and all that kind of used was, well, this is clearly a team that, hey, come on, don't mean to get you riled up now.
I got blocked by Tim Brando on X a decade ago, for those that don't know. And so I went ahead and was nice and petty all Saturday during the broadcast and blamed everything, including the wind, on Tim Brando. So there you go.
Regardless, the term that Brando and people on social media and even just impartial observers that I kind of saw who were watching the game on national television said, like, it's very clearly a team that doesn't know how to win. They won 4 games last year, but it's the people that came back. It's not a winning, they didn't come from a winning program, and you're kind of learning to figure that out. And one of the things that Bronco pinpointed today in terms of how you do become that winning program is that when the momentum was shifting like it was in Montana State's direction, either after that Adam Jones 93-yard run or during that kind of 2-minute drill that frankly was really, really well executed. That was a phenomenal 2-minute drill from Tommy Mott and company. It's just you have to make that routine play. You don't have to have the interception. You don't have to have that strip sack fumble. You don't have to have that. You just need to, make that routine play, catch the ball, be in position, and be in alignment. And it looks like Geoff just came off. So I'll carry, but to continue,
I'm back. I can tell you that there's some work going on right outside the window of my office, about 15 feet from here, that I had no idea was about to be going on. So let's see how that treats the show. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think you're disappointed if you are a fan. I think you're disappointed in the kind of fact that for as good as they looked, it only took really just a couple routine plays to kind of put them back on schedule. Frankly, to be honest with you, I mean, I think Luke Weissong will tell you himself that he should have caught that ball, but I think that was with about 5 minutes left. That wasn't a certainty. If Medford catches that ball, then it becomes a good deal. You can run out the clock and all that. You have a good opportunity to run out the clock there. Nothing's totally for certain. Miami, Georgia Tech, good Lord, that comes to mind. But yeah, I mean, I think that is just kind of the thing that should be disappointing for people, is just the sense that, when the routine plays needed to be made, for all the spectacular plays that they kind of put in, the naked boot and then the 2 fumble recovery TDs, they couldn't make the routine play at the right time. But, Bronco said, look, that is something that kind of comes with just playing more games and just kind of working through it.
I will point out a couple things. I did listen to Jeff Symbieta, JJ Buck this morning. A lot of obviously listener for them comments, and I don't know if you can hear that now, right by the window. Are you hearing that?
I can hear that, but keep going. All right, it's in the distance now. You're good.
So anyway, I heard some people say without those 2 defensive touchdowns, which you can't count on. You can't count on defensive touchdowns, and without those, where would the Lobos have been, right? Well, if you're going to take away 2 of their positives and say where would they have been, you could also take away 2 of their negatives, and you could take away the 2 drops that would have extended drives. You could have taken away maybe 1 defensive screw up, the 93-yard touchdown. So the point is, they were right there, and they weren't supposed to be right there. And I just think that I don't remember the last time I felt against a really good team, I felt they were right there as long as they were.
Yeah, and I don't know if I totally I don't know if I 100% agree in terms of, you take away the positives, you have to take, then you have to take away some of the negatives too, in that sense too. I don't know if I totally agree there. I mean, winning the turnover battle is key. Like,
I'm just talking about how close they were. Like if you're talking about the one or two plays that could have changed the game, there's one or two plays in one direction that could have changed the game. One or two plays the other way, maybe they end up winning it, right? And this was only a 10-second swing where they fell behind. So they were really close to winning this game. They were also really close to losing this game, which is what they did, obviously. So I think my point being, I think they were really close in a game that nobody outside of Albuquerque, certainly Vegas odds makers, didn't think they were going to even be close.
Yeah, no, I mean, you're dead on there too. And, I still, there's a part of me that kind of feels like 13 and a half regardless, even with the two takeaways. I mean, yeah, I get the argument, but it still felt like just really high for a team that nobody really knew what was going to do. Especially with the fact that the offensive line that actually wasn't the true supposed to be starting offensive line on Saturday as well, and just kind of the unknowns around the defense as well.
One stat I want to bring up from last year. Last year's Lobo team. This is among 130 FBS schools, ranked 130th out of 130 teams in penalties, with 119 total, and for a nation's worst 1,076 yards. It was the most penalized team in the country last year, and for the most yardage. And on Saturday, one small sample size, obviously, but 4 penalties, 30 yards. What can you make of that? Anything to make of that?
I think you definitely can make something of that. Honestly, I mean, I think the one thing with UNM last year was it was not a thing in the sense that we just get a lot of penalties because of the way we play or stuff like that. It literally was Danny's first press conference before the season started when we had the formal, hey, fall camp is coming up, we're going to have a press conference. Danny's main point in that press conference was we cannot get penalized as much. And then they had a million penalties, it felt like. And it did not get better throughout the season. It was a consistent issue. The season finale against Utah State, I believe they were over 100 yards in penalties then. It did not get better. So I think absolutely you can look at that as a positive, the fact that you didn't have that kind of a random offsides. You didn't have what happened in the opener last year against Texas A&M where there was a ton of PIs. I think Noah Pola-Gates got flagged, I want to say, at least 2. There were some other ones in that game as well. And some of that comes with, you're kind of overmatched against that wide receiver core and what Texas A&M did really well at the time, or at least for that game. But yeah, I think that absolutely is positive. We're going to learn more about how disciplined this team is when they get put in different situations throughout the season against different opponents. But yeah, I don't blame anybody for walking away with the positive that, hey, at the very least, we did not get over 50, 60, 70, 80, 90 yards and penalties like we have been getting over the last year.
Credit where it's due as well. This is a Montana State team that is good and that didn't buckle, having to finish the game 21 unanswered points. They did it. They came on the road and they did what they needed to do to win a game. So a whole lot of credit to them. They were good. I think that in some regard is why I was actually so optimistic about what I saw from the Lobos, even though I don't see another win coming for quite a while for them. I just think that that's why I was so impressed with them is I really actually think that Montana State team is legitimately as good as maybe the preseason predictions had for them, that they could be a title contender at the FCS level. So that was impressive to me. Anything else you want to say about the Montana State game as we move forward and kind of talk a little more about the presser, and then as we talk a little more about Arizona coming up this weekend?
No, I'll build on what you just said about Montana State. I mean, really, it does feel like this year in FCS, and I don't know. I don't know how much people watching this really follow FCS. It does feel like it's going to be between the Dakota schools and the Montana schools, so North Dakota State and South Dakota State, who I recommend watching this week. North Dakota State, I think, is a 8.5-point favorite. 8.5-point underdog against Colorado, and then I think South Dakota State, who just won the FCS national title game, is a 10.5-point dog to Oklahoma State. I would be inclined to take South Dakota State there. I think they're really good in particular. I don't know if Oklahoma State has the upside to beat them. But regardless, Montana State, I don't think they were just good. I think they were great. And one of the interesting things I heard from their head coach, Brent Vigen, after the game too, in particular, was him talking about, look, hey, we knew we could move the ball and we knew we could stop them. We just had to string it together. And they found a way to string it together. They got a little bit lucky. by the kind of fact that UNM did not make a couple of the routine plays or didn't connect on one of the field goals that would have helped them out there. But they didn't, and they strung it together, and pretty masterful 2-minute drive to close and take away the win.
We got one reader here. I don't know who this guy is. Some
I don't know either.
Lucas Pierman, it looks like. Lucas, first time, long time, I'm sure. Glad he's joining us on this live Sports Live podcast here. But Lucas, who I think is a big Sean Reider fan, if I'm not mistaken, says, apologies if this has already been discussed, but how about that offensive line? Gelled quickly for a group that had never played together. Aberration? Playing for an FCS squad, or is this a reason for optimism? That's a good point. The offensive line was a big question mark. Frankly, I thought both lines were a big question mark going in. You could argue everything was a question mark going in because they kept everything so close to the vest in the preseason. But it's true. The offensive line was a big question mark, and frankly looked, I thought, pretty good. What do you make of the offensive line for UNM?
Yeah, no, I mean, the offensive line was really my main question. It felt like, and I think I said this on a prior show, it felt like I was like talking to people about the game last week, and it'd be like, well, yeah, this could happen or that could happen, but it all kind of is contingent on what the offensive line does. And we probably didn't give it enough shine during the actual game as things were moving quickly, and there were defensive scores and everything kind of happening to all leading up to a pretty chaotic final 6 or so minutes of the fourth quarter. But yeah, I mean, that offensive line, they subbed in Juwan Singletary, who was the starting center entering the game. We did not know he was injured. Juwan Singletary was out. Broncos did not comment on what the injury actually was during today's press conference, and he did not give us much of a timeline there. It sounded like he could be out for a while. The depth chart is amended to reflect that he is not the starting center this week. But they brought in sophomore, I believe he's a sophomore, redshirt sophomore, Tevin Shaw, who is a Houston transfer that came in over the summer, put him at left tackle, kept the guards in place with Baraka Beckett at left guard and Richard Pierce at right guard, and then had Mackenzie Agnello fill in. They had him fill in at center, and then Wallace Unamba, who was the left tackle before they subbed in Tevin Shaw, he was the right tackle in place of Mackenzie Agnello. I hope I'm making sense. And wasn't always perfect, not particularly in the run game, but I think you can credit a bit of that too to Lucas kind of noted maybe the idea that it could be an aberration. I mean, they're an FCS squad, but I think that's an FBS defensive line with what they have coming off the edge. And then I believe it's Eckert is their nose tackle. And I think he's a pretty good player, honestly. I think he's an FBS caliber player. And wasn't perfect in the run game, but I mean, they gave Devin a good amount of time. And when Devin wasn't able, when things did collapse, Devin was able to work with it, scramble out, and make something from nothing. But giving up 0 sacks to that Montana State team, a team that had 41 sacks last year, I mean, that's pretty impressive. I think it was only 4 pressures. That's what I saw via PFF. So yeah, I mean, to kind of gel in that first game like that, and I honestly couldn't tell you. I mean, we'll talk to players tomorrow, and I think I will be talking to Agnello. I mean, I really don't think I saw Agnello snap the ball once during camp. We don't see full practices, and we didn't see full practices during fall camp. But I was under the assumption that Malik Elaine, who was a New Mexico Military Institute transfer, was the de facto backup center. And no, I thought Agnello, with the exception of like maybe 2 or 3 high snaps, was really good at center. And I definitely think fans can, be heartened by that offensive line performance for sure.
I'm going to unmute my mic since I'm trying to get that.
Yeah.
Look, I got a comment here from X. Go Lobos. Love the mix of offensive sets. Any feeling if this will continue? I will ask you about that. I'm going to throw in a second one of my own. Any surprises at Andrew Henry, his role and his frankly lack of role? And can you talk about what Broncos said about Henry's role in the backfield moving forward, but also the offensive sets? This was our first view of what this offense is going to be like under Bronco Mendenhall. Any surprises there? Did you like what you saw there?
Yeah, I think to speak to the Henry thing, I think they were with a 31-14 lead at that point, so it definitely things were going well. But somebody in the press box, I do remember on Saturday, was like, man, I just haven't seen Henry yet. And with that, I mean, like, I remember like talking to that person, like, and just kind of like yelling over basically, like, well, I mean, they haven't really needed him. But Sanders ran the ball really well as the lead back. Kind of figured he would be the guy to come away with the most carries and, you would hope the most yards, and he did. I thought he looked pretty elusive. I thought he looked pretty shifty. Mikari Rogers kind of out of the I formation. Brown Sugar, I'm with you. I really like the mix of different sets as well. I thought the I stuff was really cool. It was interesting, and I'll tie this in too. Isaiah Silliman was an offensive lineman last year, and he had been practicing as an offensive lineman. He kind of took on the hybrid tight end role that Vincent Santos has really had since the spring. And he's listed actually. Isaiah Silliman he's listed as the second string tight end on the two deep today. So yeah, I think you're for sure going to see that kind of multiple sets out of it, and then all that as well. And gosh, lose my train of thought. But Mendenhall did mention today. It's a question by our colleague Rick Wright, I believe. Did he think that the naked boot would ever work again? That kind of call there. And Mendenhall did give kind of a pretty funny response where he said, like, I mean, like, it worked multiple times against our defense, so you got to think it's probably going to work against another defense. So yeah, I thought that was pretty funny, and I think it's an absolutely safe bet to say that there's going to be a good mix of offensive sets going forward and personnel too.
I agree on the. I thought it was funny when he talked about the naked boot, which I'm going to pull up here and I'm going to show people as we're talking. But what was that press room like? That when that naked boot touchdown run by Dampier, who's a great runner, by the way. In fact, I will ask you this, kind of as part of this. Other than that, I was a little surprised he didn't run as much. Is that only because they just have to protect him? They only want him to run in total ad lib kind of broken play situations, or did they just kind of dial it up that way this time? I was a little surprised they didn't have more maybe designed runs for him. I know how precious it is to keep him healthy this year, but I kind of thought maybe they'd let him run a little more. Were you surprised at that at all?
I don't know for sure on that note, and I would like a coordinator availability to kind of speak with offensive coordinator Jason Beck about this, because there is kind of two trains of thought. If he can run, why wouldn't you run him more? But also, why would you run him more if he's, I mean, Devin didn't have a perfect day as a passer. He certainly sailed a couple throws here and there. And that's definitely noted. But at the same time, I mean, really, I mean, there were some points outside of when he had to kind of scramble out of the pocket. I remember that first drive when Greeby kind of pushed him out and he had to go run out. And I think he picked up the first there. I don't remember exactly. And then I think it was either their third to last drive. Devin had a really nice scramble that picked up the first. I can tell you that for sure. Third or fourth to last drive. I don't remember exactly off the top of my head. But yeah, I think I was a little surprised, but not a ton. I had seen Devin run throughout fall camp, but it wasn't, where he was pass run. It's clear that they really want to, make, they like what they have in him as a passer, and they want to get the most out of that. And there it is, folks, the naked boot.
It'll come up here again, and I'll just kind of keep it running here for a second. So obviously the good and the bad of this is that they showed it right away, right, in game one. But I think you want to, because they run a lot out of. They're gonna. I mark my word. You run a play like this in game one, it's because you're gonna see this formation an awful lot this year. And he did talk about it when Rick asked him. Surprised it worked, and he said it didn't. It didn't just work against our defense in practice. It didn't work once. It worked more than once, more than twice, more than three times. So even in the Lobo practices where the Lobo defense knew a play like that was coming at times, like they still weren't stopping it. So he worked it to perfection. This is kind of not a good example in what I'm trying to say is that Devin can run so well. Anybody, I mean, almost with the exception of me, could have run for an awful lot of yardage on that naked boot because the defense was so fooled. But Devin can run though. I'm a little surprised. I will say I was surprised that he didn't get to run more, and I don't know that it was Montana State all the time that was preventing that from happening. I kind of thought the play calling, if anything's worth questioning, which I'm not going to do too much of after game one, But it is that I thought maybe they could have got him out in the open field a little bit more.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point, to be honest with you. I think certainly when things were a little more stagnant, you could have probably relied on Devin's legs a little bit more. But it's also, I mean, like you set the game plan in, and you want to work with the game plan. I mean, I think that's a big thing of a big part of why Montana State ended up closing so hard is they had their game plan, they had what they were good at, and they relied on that. That's what good teams do to win games. You turn to what you're good at, and you ride that all the way through. And I think UNM knows what they're good at in terms of capabilities, at least offensively at this point. Yeah, I think there is still kind of an element of what can we turn to, where you look at them, what can we turn to when the going does get tough, and what can we rely on the moment there? Is it the run game? Is it the short passing game, and how that all plays out?
One that I didn't see from earlier, and then we will move forward. What are your thoughts on that last field goal? The wind was terrible. It was. For those that didn't see, the wind knocked the camera off the press box. Again, I blame Tim Brando, but others think it was the wind. Whatever the case, a camera did fall off the press box at University Stadium. Nobody was injured. I did check on that, but it could have been a nasty situation. And that wind for about 20 minutes there got pretty nasty. And in that 20-minute window, sure enough, the Lobos had a field goal try that some people questioned. Should they've even tried that? Are you putting your kicker in a no-win situation there? On the other hand, what else you can do if you're not all that confident you're going to pick up the first down there. I can't remember what the yardage was for the first with the line.
4th and 7. That field goal, yeah.
So 7's tough. Obviously, 7's tough, and you're going to give them the ball in the same, roughly the same spot anyway. Maybe you do take your chance there, maybe you don't. But the question is, what are your thoughts on that field goal? You did talk to Bronco about the field goals or about the wind a little bit. Any comments Saturday or today about those field goal tries and about the wind?
Yeah, what I'll tell you is that in the press box, I think it was it was Will Weber from the Santa Fe New Mexican, me, and then Rick Wright, and we were all questioning that decision in the moment. That's with the caveat of, look, you don't have a lot of 4th and 7 calls in the play sheet. I mean, you really don't. But it was Montana State territory. Maybe you dial something up. I mean, and you dial up a 3rd and long play and see what happens there. Honestly, in our post game show, I kind of just rehashed Bronco's answer where he said there was a discussion, but you don't love 4th and 7. As that night wore on, the more and more I question that field goal decision, to be honest with you. I think if I was calling that game, and that's a silly hypothetical in a lot of ways, I probably would have gambled on the 4th and 7 and gone for it. I don't know if they had time for a longer discussion that they would have stuck with the field goal, to be honest with you. But the goalposts were literally moving. The wind kind of was pretty new in that time at that sense. And it just seemed like it just didn't seem like the best decision. If he makes it, we're not even talking about this at this moment, most likely. And I know that UNM, one of their things, their special teams pillars that I also mentioned in the post-game show on Saturday was that, they want to be 100% from everything 44 yards and in. And I think that was a 42-yard field goal. And that's something that Bronco said. He said the way Luke Ricky had kicked all throughout camp, we liked our odds there. And I want to be clear, this is nothing to take away from Jizwicki as a kicker. I mean, that's a tough kick with that crosswind, with that kind of, borderline moving target going on. But at the same time, it just seemed like rather adverse conditions for a kick like that. And but that's also football. I mean, you got to make plays in adverse conditions all the time. So,
all right, let's move forward. Life goes on after Montana State. I know some people may have thought that was the whole season for the Lobos. People are talking now about when are they going to win another game. Their schedule's brutal. It really is for a rebuilding team, a bad team, frankly, a bad team that's trying to get out of the bad territory and to get out of that bottom tier. People outside of New Mexico that rank these things 1 through 30 at the FBS level and have tiers. The Lobos aren't expected to do much this year, right? They were picked 11th in a 12-team league, could have easily been 12th. It was close between them and Nevada, who, side note here, had every opportunity in the world to pull off a major upset themselves on Saturday, and double-digit home dog that could have won until the final minutes, and they lost to SMU. I digress. The Lobos moving forward now play a ranked Arizona team. They got Auburn. When is this team gonna pick up another win? One of the YouTube comments says, yes, we should have won that game. However, can we not compete and possibly knock off anyone left on the schedule? I think we can. Yes, Arizona and Auburn are going to be tough. We have the coaching and the talent. What do you think about that? A little too optimistic that they can knock off anybody? Is there anybody on the schedule remaining that you would say the Lobos? Anything can happen on any given day. I know that, but let's give it a 90% or better chance. Like, I would say Arizona and Auburn are well into the 90% chances that they're going to win those games. Beyond that, is there any chance that you'd say any game that the Lobos don't have a chance in?
No, I would not. Yeah, I wouldn't say that at all, to be honest with you. Because it's Arizona. Then the first bye week, you go to Auburn after that. Then you got Fresno State at home, New Mexico State. I almost did that in Las Cruces. And then after that, I think it's the second bye week. And then you have, I think it's Utah State, Colorado State.
October 12th is Air Force.
Thank you. So Air Force, and then Utah State, and then Colorado State, both on the road.
Yep.
And then San Diego State on the road after.
It alternates after the Colorado State road game. So November goes home versus Wyoming, at San Diego State, home versus Washington State, at Hawaii to end the season. Not a bad little last game of the regular season to finish up on the islands, but you don't see any one of those Mountain West teams or even a Washington State that are unwinnable. I mean, they'll have a chance in all those. And I don't want to speak for you. Do you think they have a chance outside of a 5% chance or whatever you want to call it at an Arizona or an Auburn? Do you think they have a chance in either of those games?
It's certainly less likely, right? Because of just the talent that Auburn and Arizona have, right? We're also talking about an Auburn team that is less than a year removed from getting them. They got absolutely stuffed. I'm trying to find the suitable for work combination of words to describe what New Mexico State did to them last year. I mean, they bullied them. I mean,
and there are a lot of Auburn fans that can't wait to get their revenge on that New Mexico State team because, as far as they know, New Mexico State are the same team.
That was one of the funniest things, man. It wasn't just fans. It was, you're on Twitter during that game and they're like, this New Mexico State quarterback, like, man, he can play and all that. Like, you didn't even know, it's like reporters, like, you didn't even know the guy's name. Like, the most basic level of prep, learn the opposing quarterback's name. Like, you didn't even know that, which is kind of funny, in my opinion. But yeah, I mean, I think Auburn's going to be better than they were last year. And Arizona is kind of interesting in the sense that they were quite good last year. I believe they were, 10-3. They won the bowl game, beat Oklahoma, if I remember correctly. But that's no longer a Jed Fish coach team. That's actually a Brent Brennan coach team, who I really like. I think Brent Brennan's a really good coach. And I think he did a phenomenal job at San Jose State in a lot of respects. And this is a kind of a question we asked Bronco today. How do you kind of prepare for this team, because you don't know what offensive system they're going to run, right? Are they going to be more Brent Brennan, San Jose State style offense? They have former Syracuse head coach Dino Babers, who a lot of people actually on the current New Mexico staff have worked with in prior capacities. Do you prepare for that kind of look? What do you prepare for? Are they going to do something kind of unexpected, or try to run something similar to what Fish ran, which I don't think is probably going to happen. And Bronco said, straight up, like, we're trying to get intel on that. That doesn't mean we're spying by any stretch of the imagination. We're just trying to get an idea of what, how they're using guys. But he said it is going to be tricky because, they do have a really good personnel. Number one, I mean, quarterback Noah Fafita is phenomenal. And that's kind of the key guy you really need to know heading into this game. But yeah, do I think it's a absolute 0% chance for either? No. I mean, crazy things happen in college football. That's why we all love the sport. That's why we watch it every single Saturday. And you never totally know. But yes, there's, kind of an implied lesser chance there because of the talent level. As for the rest of the schedule, to kind of wrap this up, I mean, no, I don't think there's any game on the rest of the schedule where they don't have a chance in and stuff like that. Now, injuries in particular could probably change some of that heading down the stretch.
Goes both ways.
Yeah, exactly. That's true. if there is a Devin Dampier injury, this is not a slight on Isaiah Chavez or Emery Floyd or James Lobstein, any of the other guys in the quarterback room. It's just that this offense is by and large designed around what Devin does well. And I think that's a good thing, but it's also, I mean, that's something that happens in football. Quarterbacks get injured, players get injured. If you had an injury to Eli Sanders, if you had an injury to Noah Avenger, those worst case scenarios could play out for sure and make things maybe less competitive. But at the same time, I don't think there's any, I don't think they have zero shot against Wyoming or zero shot against Air Force. I think they should be, after what we saw Saturday, and if there is that kind of week-to-week improvement that Bronco Mendenhall said he kind of hopes to see, then, I think they should absolutely be competitive down the stretch. Do I think they start 0-4 and, win their next 6 games and rally for a bowl game? Probably not. That's just kind of a symptom of a team trying to figure out ways to win and do all that. But
remember the over/under on season wins. Yeah, the season total for them was opened at 1.5 and bumped up to 2.5.
Exactly.
The computers that don't have a dog in the fight all think this is a Lobo team that should produce about somewhere in the 2 to 3 win range. So I think I think it's an over. I do think they're a little bit better than that. So we'll see. But just for some context, on the odds for this weekend, for our friends in the desert, for those that are into such things, if you think the Lobos are going to win in Tucson and go to Arizona, number 21 Arizona Wildcats, and win, your best bet, it looks like here, I'm on VegasInsider.com. You better shop your lines, and you can get a plus 3,000 at DraftKings, and you can make the most money if you really think the Lobos have a chance at winning. But most places have that at plus 2,500 on the money line. But the spread is sort of a little more common. The computers are telling us this: the Lobos, to make this an even game, the Lobos will get 31.5 points, 31.5 points. It's kind of ranging between 30 and 31.5, but it looks like 31.5 at most spots. And with an over/under of 54.5, which is about the same that the over/under was Saturday, which was clearly over. It was into the 60s, the Montana State New Mexico game. So for the gamblers in the room here, looking at a point spread of the Arizona Wildcats favored by 31.5, and money line, you can make some good money if you think the Lobos are actually going to pull this off. And if you think Arizona is going to win, you can go bet on them and not make a lot of money, but it is what it is. That's how the big buildings in Vegas get made. Some other storylines here for Arizona this week. You mentioned their head coach. So, if I'm not mistaken, they have an assistant coach on that Arizona staff that might be familiar to some people here that cover and follow Lobo football. Anything about that is worth noting, and how many people still on this Lobo team might take anything into that? Any of the players take any motivation in that? I mean, he was fired. It wasn't like Danny, left or on his own accord or anything like that. So I don't know that there's any motivation necessarily. But any talk about the Danny Gonzalez part of all this?
I like how you led into it like, there might be a guy they might know, and then just kind of abandoned it midway through to be like, oh, yeah, Danny, I mean, yeah. Look, we haven't talked to players yet, and I don't know for sure what they're going to say, so I can't speak for them. We will talk to players tomorrow, and we'll kind of go from there. It certainly will be a point of questioning for sure. Bronco has said in the past that even he had some mixed feelings kind of about taking this job. In one hand, it's a place where he kind of, launched the second half of his coaching career as a coordinator here under Rocky Long to, become the head coach at BYU after being the DC at BYU for a couple seasons, and then the head coach of Virginia, and now to come back and have that kind of full circle moment. Also, he was a guy that Bronco coached, and that kind of led to those mixed feelings there, just in the sense of, you're taking up for a guy that, you liked and respected and you were doing all that for. So, yeah, it's a storyline that's at play. I have reached out to Arizona to try and actually talk to Danny. I have not heard anything back from Arizona. They also have Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, who was sensational last year, as we all remember, for UNM. And yeah, I'm curious. I haven't seen a U of A depth chart quite yet. But everything that I've kind of seen, it seems like he's certainly in positioning to be the lead back come Saturday night.
I will also point out that Saturday's game, for those interested in such things as broadcast teams, it'll be on ESPN. Play-by-play, Brian Custer, fantastic play-by-play guy. So the Lobos get a good one there. Rod Gilmore and the analyst, and sidelines Lauren Sisler. Big step up from this past weekend's Tim Brando call. I do want to, I guess if you're looking for one thing going into the Arizona game, if fans should look for one kind of thing to see if they improve or if they put the loss behind them, what would you say it would be? I'll put this out there while you think about it. Is a guy like Luke Weissong, he's not going to drop many passes this year. Medford, I frankly don't know as well as Weissong, who's been a local kid forever.
You have one full season sample size for Medford, so yeah, like
right.
That makes sense. Like you wouldn't know him as well.
I would be shocked though if I see Luke Weissong drop a pass as frankly as easy as that one was. I'd be surprised if I see Luke do that again, especially in a key moment. I think he's going to have a great year. He's voted team captain or selected as a team captain, and he is a guy that I think is going to have a fantastic year for the Lobos. So that one kind of shocked me, but I want to see it. I do want to see from week 1 to week 2 some of those mental issues that they had down the stretch, which I don't think there were many, but a couple drops. I want to see a guy like Luke Weissong continue to have a really good season, and I think game 2 would be a good opportunity for him to show, that was a bad play, but it's not going to define the season. I don't think it will, but I want to see it from him.
Yeah, I think big picture. I mean, we all had the number in our heads, 362 rushing yards. It was only the 4th time over 217, 218 career games that Bronco Mendenhall has been a head coach since 2005. That a Bronco Mendenhall team had given up 350 plus rushing yards. It's not something that has happened a lot. I think honestly, I'm not saying like, well, if they don't give up, 300, and you start picking off kind of numbers. I think if it is a more stout performance against the run, and this is going to be a team that's going to run the football quite well, to be honest with you, from everything that I've kind of heard and seen. If they figure out ways to perform against this run game in particular, then yeah, I think that's something to be heartened by. Particular too, I mean, things in the secondary kind of iron themselves out a little bit too. I think it was that, I don't remember what it made the score, to be honest with you, but that Ty McCullough touchdown against UNM, where he kind of basically just slotted into the it's like just a pylon route, and he was just he got lost in coverage. I think just kind of if you're seeing less of those communication and not quite assignment errors is what Mendenhall said, but we're kind of using the word a ton execution errors. If you're seeing players execute on plays like that, then that's something that certainly should be heartening. And it is
pull them within 10.
Yeah, and it is like I think there's plenty of things to react to from this Montana State game, in terms of the run defense and how they manage the secondary and all that as well. But it is also you don't want to overreact to a 1-game sample size. That's not to excuse giving up a 93-yard touchdown run. That's not to excuse not making routine plays that could have swung things back. But you do want to be mindful of not just, this team's terrible at defending the run, and that's how they're going to be all year, because we don't know for sure at this point, to be honest with you.
We had I saw you at the luncheon today. We sat down and spoke with before we sign off here. I do want to send a shout out, a congratulations, we're gonna miss you. New Mexico is losing one hell of a journalist in the next week or so, in Lauren Green from KOB, a local from Albuquerque, went to Volcano Vista High School, I believe it was, and was a track star there. Competed in track in Nevada in the Mountain West. She has done great work here in Albuquerque, also working for the Mountain West Network. I don't know how public she has yet been with what she's doing next, so I won't say it here, but I will tell you that it is a much deserved and very exciting opportunity for her, and she will be missed. There's some good journalists, some good journalists here in Albuquerque and in New Mexico. I know a lot of you on social media want to give us a hard time, and that's fine. I deserve it. I deserve an awful lot of it.
I do too.
And that said, we're losing a good one with Lauren. Lauren, you will be missed, and I'm glad it won't be. You will be in a position though that a lot of people are still going to be able to see you. Just won't be here in New Mexico, so you will be missed. And good luck with what is next for you, Lauren. I also want to say I have some intel.
Pause. Did you just scoop Lauren on her own announcement?
No, she's announced she's leaving.
Has she formally announced? I don't remember seeing that on Twitter.
Yeah, she said she's leaving.
Yeah, she did. Okay, I was
not where she's going.
Yeah, that thought popped into my head. I was like, oh my god, you just scooped Lauren on her own.
Look, I can't. Sometimes I can't help myself. I just get so much inside information. So good luck to Lauren, who has announced that she is leaving, and she will be missed.
Before I know where you're going with the next one, can you pull up this last G-Wade comment with TCU at the end real quick? I do want to talk about that a little bit. I think this is
let's talk about this, and then I do have some intel, some more of that inside information that I got by way of Michigan that I think the listeners and readers and all the followers of Sean Reider should they need to know about. Let's go to this. G-Wade, teams reinvent themselves every year, even more so in the portal era. We all think we know how good teams are going or how good teams are going to be, but frankly, it's too early to know. TCU ring a bell from last year. All right, what do you want to say about that, Sean?
TCU from 2 years ago. It would be really funny if I was just pulling this up to correct G-Wade on that, and then we got the next thing. But no, G-Wade, I think you're entirely right. This is a very valid point. I mean, I do the AP preseason poll, like I am the New Mexico voter, and it's an honor to do that. But it's also, you are doing that kind of with the recognition of half this poll is probably not even going to matter, if we're being honest, just in terms of we all think we know what the teams are going to be, and a lot of them just end up not being that team. TCU, TCU from last year. I actually get what you're saying now. Excuse me, G-Wade.
But years, really in different directions.
Yeah, right. Because they were at the bottom of the Big 12. They were picked at the bottom of the Big 12 when they made the run of the national title game, and then they were were they a top 10 team heading last year? I don't even remember.
I think they were preseason well thought of, at least, whatever the number was.
Exactly, right. And with a lot of those guys gone and some other guys entering the portal and stuff like that. So, yeah, I think this is a valid point. I think it's particularly relevant in this Mountain West year right now, particularly because of, the amount of coaching turnover that's kind of happened, the amount of different portal approaches you're seeing, new coaches at San Diego State, New Mexico, obviously. Nevada didn't get it done against SMU, and I think you could honestly look at that Nevada performance and say that it honestly was more on SMU in some ways because of, frankly, SMU played just abysmal for a hot minute. But the fact that Nevada made it a game, as I believe they were 4 touchdown dogs, was really impressive and kind of a testament.
29, I think, closed that. So even a little more on the north side of 4 touchdowns.
Exactly. I think that's a pretty good testament to pretty good testament to like what Geoff Choate's doing there and some of the talent they got. And there we go. Thank you, G-Wade. Yeah, top 10 last year, and a CU team that garnered a ton of headlines last year and will be garnering more headlines this year. Beat them in a really, really entertaining opener last year. But yeah, I think I think it's particularly relevant in the Mountain West that we just don't know what a lot of these teams are going to be. In particular, you feel like you have a good read on Fresno. You feel like you have a good read on Boise, who also has a new head coach, in the sense that new permanent head coach Spencer Danielson getting the position there for good. And you feel like you have a good idea what UNLV is going to be, but UNLV last year was one of the teams that shocked everybody more or less with their run to the Mountain West championship game. So, yeah, I think that's a really worthy point, and it's also kind of ties into what I said earlier. You don't want to overreact to a week 0 result and all that. So, Geoff, I know you've been dying to talk about this next point. Please go for it.
Real quick, couple other things going on around sports world in Albuquerque. A lot of high school sports. James Yotis is killing it once again in the prep scene. abqjournal.com/sports will get you there a step quicker. He also has a weekly podcast, Prep Central. Tune in. It's on the Journal's YouTube page. You can also get it on Albuquerque Journal's website at any time. Sean, do you have a writer's block podcast coming this week?
Yes, we will have a Writer's Block podcast coming this week. We will have Justin Spears. He is an Arizona beat reporter for the Tucson Daily Star. Excuse me. So excited to have him on, talk more about Arizona, and talk about some of the interesting dynamics heading into this game. I think that'll be released on Thursday. I think that's the plan right now. So, yeah.
There are, as far as the Isotopes go, Albuquerque Isotopes, 2 homestands left. They got 12 games left, but they got a 6-game homestand starting Tuesday. For those interested in such things, the number 4 prospect in the Rockies organization, according to MLB Pipeline, was called up on Saturday for the Isotopes. Zach Veen, he's an outfielder. He was their number 1 prospect, I believe, maybe number 2 last year. Had a thumb injury, slipped down a couple spots. He's now considered their number 4 prospect in the minors, but he is here. He has got a fantastic mustache that everybody should see, and he can swing the bat pretty well too. So that's worth taking a look at. Home Run Derby X was this past Friday at Isotopes Park. MLB has a new home run 3-on-3 team competition. The team that won was a team comprised of Ryan Zimmerman, former Washington Nationals MLB All-Star, Andrea Howard, the all-time home run leader for the UNM Lobo softball team, and Gene Trujillo, a sophomore on the Lobo baseball team. Really exciting. The MVP on that was Jared Mang, a former Lobo player from Los Alamos High School, who also happens to be engaged to Andrea Howard. So that was a really cool event. The Isotopes did it well. MLB did it well. We're going to sign off with some intel I received over the weekend from Michigan. I'll just say one of my sources from Michigan wanted to point out that after last week's show and Saturday's, I guess, post-game show, also with Spears when you were on in Tucson and radio in Tucson, this has come to light. And Sean Reider has never eaten a grape. He has never eaten a blueberry. I will back off. I thought it was weird that he has never had hot fries, but I am now realizing that's more of a regional thing. So I'll back off the hot fries part of this and just say, like, I don't get how Sean has never had a grape and has never had a blueberry, but I want to point out that it's he wasn't brought up this way. It's through no fault of Sean's parents that he is this way. They tried and tried to have this young man eat fruits and vegetables as he was growing up. And this unnamed source tells me that after watching the show last week, Sean was indeed exposed to grapes and blueberries in his life. And he just never wanted them. And he's been nitpicky his whole life.
Whoa. Not the whole life. No, come on now.
Well, I believe I beg to differ, and my source begs to differ. There might have even been a Mother's Day where tears were brought to the eyes of Sean's mom when he decided, now's the time. I think I want a banana. And maybe he was turning the corner and he was now going to be a big consumer of fruits and vegetables. And it turns out that was about it. I don't know what to tell you, Sean. Look, great country song, Mama Tried. And Sean, here we are. When are you going to have a grape? When are you going to have a blueberry, man? You've been blueberry picking multiple times in your life, and never once just popped a blueberry in your mouth. Never had a blueberry muffin.
So for people watching this and just wondering what the absolute hell is going on, my mother, my wonderful mother, back home in Michigan. I'm originally from Michigan.
I do not reveal my sources.
All my family, I will definitely reveal the source. My mother yesterday emailed Geoff Grammer. She watches the live shows. We did talk on the phone yesterday. She didn't bring this up, but she emailed Geoff Grammer and said, "Hey, we always had fruit in the house."
I will not confirm or deny who my source is.
When Sean was very young, and I'll fully attest to this, like, completely. When I was, basically until I was like, 9 and 10, I was a really, really picky eater.
Very difficult to feed is what I was told.
Yeah, difficult to feed.
Nuggets, orange pop were staples.
I can't believe this is getting talked about on the show right now. But yes, I was a picky eater growing up. I got significantly better over the years. I can't believe we're talking about this right now. But yeah, I was a picky eater growing up. I still don't eat a ton of fruit. Still have not had a blueberry or grape. I have a pile of bananas over there right now. I mean, eat
How about
plenty
an
of
apple, Sean? Tell us about an apple, because that came up today. Have you ever had an apple, Sean?
I've never like picked up like an apple and just like taking a bite out of it for sure. I couldn't tell you the last time I had apple slices. I'm definitely open to like having an apple for sure. More than grapes and blueberries, to be honest with you. Seems like a good deal there. But yes, my mother did email Geoff Grammer, just out of the blue.
No confirmation there.
And to set the record straight, it was not her fault, and she's absolutely right. It's definitely not her fault. It is my fault more than anything. So, yeah, I can't believe that just all got explained on a live show when I'm 24 years old with Geoff Grammer.
Do you know Merle Haggard, Sean?
I do know Merle Haggard. Yes.
After this show, we're gonna make sure you have a lot of listening to "Mama Tried" by Merle. Look, to the readers, listeners, viewers, whatever, for bearing with us through this nonsense. I appreciate you.
It's a wild one. Live show.
A lot of nonsense for a live show. Look, thank you guys. Local journalism, support it when you can, and if you can subscribe to the Albuquerque Journal, I'll do a shameless plug here. It's what keeps things like this going. abqjournal.com/subscribe. And we can't sign off without now recognizing one more comment here. But abqjournal.com/subscribe, not just sports, although we're killing it there. I'm very proud of the sports department I now work for, with our Lobo football coverage, with our high school sports coverage, New Mexico United, combat sports. We're doing well. And I am proud with all the things we're trying, but it's also news, city side, entertainment, politics, everything. Subscribe if you can. Print edition, digital edition, or you can do a print and digital combo, and it helps us bring you some of this coverage. Sean, what's the word on green chili? You okay with some green chili?
Big green chili guy. Big green and red guy. Big fan. I'll be completely honest, with you and the listeners, honestly. I mean, I don't think I've ever eaten better consistently, just in terms of having great food available on a daily basis than I have, in my time living in New Mexico. So very much enjoy the food, very much enjoy green chili. It's a different, it's obviously way different than what you would get in Michigan, but it is fantastic, and I truly do love it.
I'm glad you're not comparing the green chili you get here to the green chili in Michigan. So good work there. What do you got?
One thing I do want to put in before, the great Bill Connolly of ESPN. If you're familiar with Connolly, you know him from his S&P Plus picks. Really good, really cool projection model. And right now he has, we were talking about percentages earlier. Here's an actual number. He has Arizona at a 98% chance to win by a projected score of 46-13. What is interesting off the model up right above that is that New Mexico State's openers this week, they just named their starting quarterback Parker Awad today. New Mexico State opens up against Southeast Missouri State, which is an FCS team, and they give New Mexico State a 67% chance to win and a projected score of 31-24 in New Mexico State. Yeah. So if you wanted the actual kind of percentages for both games, I guess there you go.
Sean, I appreciate it. Thanks for coming on. We're going to be doing this after the game, even late night. We'll try and get some of these broadcasts after every home game, and I think we're going to settle in on after every press conference day, which is going to, I assume, most of the time be Mondays. That could shift as days of the weeks for game days shift and bye weeks and stuff like that. But if there's a game that week, we'll have one of these posts or one of these preview kind of shows after the weekly press conference with the head coach, with Bronco Mendenhall. And we'll also be doing about 30-40 minutes after every game. We're going to have one of these. We need your questions. We need your comments. And once again, I appreciate it. Albuquerque Journal Sports Live, and subscribe to the Albuquerque Journal if you can.
Geoff, thanks for having me on, and appreciate everybody for tuning in today and listening to us just continue to ramble.
Thanks, guys.